business is your business. It's all up in my lady business with me, Mary Nisi. Welcome to today's episode of All Up in My Lady Business. And we're going to be specifically just up in my lady business today in a metaphorical way. It's just me today. No Melissa, no guest. I'm just going to be like raw dogging it into your ears about the shit that's on my mind. I'm recording this in the beginning of February. Not really the beginning. February 10th, I believe, is the day I'm recording this. So a month and a couple of weeks into the new year, which has felt like 40 years. And I've been really hard on myself for the last, really since the pandemic started, where I haven't been able to like make my brain work. Like I get really easily distracted, and I feel like I'm not getting anything done, even though on paper it looks like I get a lot done, and I do get a lot done, but I'm not getting as much done as I would previously been capable of doing. I am, kind of sort of addicted to the groom scrolling. But I've done a lot of things to try to get out of that. And I might have mentioned before, but when I got back last year during the, I was out of the country for the inauguration when Trump came in the second time. And I was at the annual Panama yoga retreat that I'm constantly talking about, because it's really good for me to be there. But I was out of town for the inauguration, and it was like when I landed from it, I really saw my complicity, and maybe that's being too harsh, but like just how it all kind of comes together, like how we got to where we are at. And it's been just little chisels and changes and things we let happen. And we haven't really, I think it's bananas that women have had the right to choose taken away from us, and we're not all out rioting in the streets. And I am putting myself in that same bucket. I'm not out there rioting in the streets. I'm doing what I can or what I think I can. And I keep thinking, why isn't somebody doing something? And unfortunately, we are the someones that have to do anything. But I think about, I watched the Ken Burns documentary on the American Revolution. And it really pulls no punches, and he really talks about how much of a piece of shit George Washington was, and just in terms of how he treated not only the Native Americans, but also having slaves, and his dentures in his mouth were actually made from slave teeth. Facts no one really wants to really reckon with, but when we came, it's like, the American Revolution is both amazing and horrifying at the same time, because, and I haven't really given a whole lot of thought to American history. It's not something I really studied too terribly hard. Like when I was getting my degree, like my, art history degree, I really do believe that my art history degree gave me like a degree in history. It just happened to be prettier than a regular history degree is. But American art didn't really interest me until the 20th century. So I admittedly didn't really dive much into American history. And we haven't had that much history when you really think about it. We've only been around, 250 years at this point is the length of time we've existed. Back when I was studying this, we'd only been in existence for like 200 years. So not really, not too much off that though. So my point being is that I didn't really know much about America. I haven't really digested American history the way that I have digested other civilizations' history. That said, watching the Ken Burns documentary, I was able to learn a lot more than about how we started and all those other things, and kind of really being able to see, like, in many ways, like extraordinary circumstances that led to the America happening. Like when America happened, it was like we made a new country, which is something that hadn't really been done before. People don't usually go places and then just start up a new country. And, the Pilgrims came over, and then colonists came over, and they were all colonists of England. But the only way that we could accomplish being here was by stealing the land from the native people that live here. And it's what it took in order for America to happen, were people coming over here, killing the native population, or at least pushing them back and taking over lands, and just having guns and diseases and numbers, I guess, maybe not. I don't even know what our population was like versus the native population at that time, but it just made it possible for us to just steal the land. And that's a big startup cost, right? Like where if you're thinking about, countries as a business or whatever, like the starting, they didn't have to buy their land. They didn't have to buy the factory. They just took the land. So that's a huge startup cost that was, eliminated because we stole it. But we come here, we start it. And then once, we get to the point where we start thinking about how being underneath the British flag without any kind of representation in England is kind of fucked up, and that we, want to have our own thing and don't want to be ruled by this class across the ocean that takes 3 months to get here and blah, 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 blah. Like it's not ideal. And so they start using these, amazing, Enlightenment era ideals to start coming up with what the country should be and how should we operate, and all men are created equal except for the slaves, women, and native people. And there's always asterisks on things in that way. And we had these highfalutin ideas where we kind of came in to sort of figure out what we wanted this country to be. And one of the facts that came out in the American Revolution documentary was so in America at the time of the colonial brouhaha, the late, the 1700s, let's just say, in America, there were like 5 groups of tribes that all kind of came together underneath one umbrella of like a federation of the Algonquin, I think maybe was what it was called. I probably should have researched this a little bit better before I started talking about it. But there was they all kind of came under these 5 tribes, all came together. They all lived in their own places. And once a year, they would come together and make decisions that would kind of help everybody else out. So they all kind of worked together to help keep them safe from everybody that was outside of them. And that was what Ben Franklin used as the blueprint for how we operate, how we structured our democracy, was that the states were kind of like the 5 tribes, and that they would all kind of have some loose things that kind of kept them safe and organized and made it so they could easily, travel between the other things, but also have their own identity, but then have protections and things that benefited the whole. We stole that from the Native Americans. That was like our blueprint. And that was part of what we used to figure out how we wanted to structure America at the time. So in that way, it's like, it is kind of amazing to come in and we want to make this new place. And they had some good ideas, and no taxation with representation, separation of church and state, these things that, being self-governed by the people and not just like a ruling class that makes all the decisions. I'm kind of all over the place here. But my point is that it was kind of amazing that we came together, fought off Britain, and started our own country on stolen land. And then the only reason why we were able to make the wealth we were able to make, which was wealth that was never seen anywhere else in the world up until this point, was by having slave labor. And so slave labor comes in, it makes all of our food, it makes the fabric, it's exports, it makes this country super wealthy. But those people weren't equal. So basically our startup costs for this country were free. We stole the land and we stole the labor. And so I feel like karmically, like until we kind of come to terms with those 2 really hard facts, like the karma, what goes around comes around. Like, and we've never reckoned with it. We've never properly apologized. We've never given those people the ability to be able to have the same life, liberty, pursuit of happiness that everybody else, the white people, white men, and and to a lesser extent, the women, have had in this country, which is fucked up. It's fucked up. And I feel like until like, it's like, that's like where we're starting is it's like, that is a muck that we like really can't seem to get out from under. And, it's like, we look at the Epstein Island of it all. And I'm having a real tough time with the Epstein files. And, Trump just wants us to get over it and move on. And Pam Bondi was in her thing yesterday with the survivors behind her, and she was just awful to them. And, it's the amount of disgusting shit that we have seen coming out of this. And it's all these, it's like, and I love how Republicans are like, oh, there's also Democrats in there. Fine, fucking fry them. No Democrat is trying to protect Bill Clinton. No Democrat is trying to protect Bill Gates. Like, they're all disgusting. And the thing that they all have in common is this enormous wealth. There's no poor people on Epstein Island. And I don't think that we are built to have access to this much evidence of evil and depravity. Like I saw a carousel on Instagram that was from a trial lawyer that was like, when we have cases where there's like, child, whatever, sexual, whatever, there's really disgusting, like depraved things that are going to be hard to digest. They have to kind of, they have to pace out how much the images come out, pace out how much, because your brain is not meant to take in this much information and have some kind of like objective take on it. And so we're getting all these images. We're learning that all these people that we have trusted, that we have believed on both sides of the aisle are fucking monsters. The thing they all have in common is gobs of money. And, that's the only thing they care about. It's like, Jeffrey Epstein, I really kind of think that part of what his strategy was these people that he wanted their money, he would get them to the island, get them in their dumb boys club where they're doing awful things that they can get away with in this place that they can't get away with anywhere else. And then now Epstein has dirt on them. So then they're like, well, I guess I got to give him my money now. But hey, I got a good rate of return. So, I mean, I may have had to murder a 9-year-old, but hey, I've got an extra $20 million in my bank account. And so, like it's kind of easy for them, I guess, to like be okay with it or whatever. And, everyone's coming out and saying, oh, it was just social. We were just socially hanging out. And it's like, well, yeah, when you're doing social, like you're only doing sex pest parties in social situations. You're not usually getting paid to do those. So, it makes me realize like, really, it's the money, it's the money is the problem. And, I think that, Elon Musk made a tweet the other day that was like, money can't, if money truly can't buy happiness, womp womp. And it's like, and everyone's like, blah, boo hoo, Elon Musk. And it's like, but it's true. I can see how he is so rich and he has all this money and everybody hates him. Fucking Epstein didn't even want him on his island. He's like having Ghislaine Maxwell try to get rid of him. Like it's true. Money can't buy happiness. And what money can do is make things comfortable. Like you can make it so that you don't have to worry about your lights getting turned off or your cable getting cut off or that if you can afford food. And I think that above that, though, once you have your basic needs met and then you've got enough to also like go on vacations and, whatever, like that's a good amount of money. But nobody needs millions of dollars, especially when somebody's being exploited if you're making that much money. But that's a different conversation for a different time. But I really don't think I've ever seen a truly happy rich person. They all seem to have like a blankness behind the eyes. And, it's like they get all this money and then they realize it's not that great. Like, and I just don't know when enough is enough. Like, why is Jeffrey Bezos still trying to make all this money? Why is he still, like making rocket companies and when they could be making museums and like what the robber barons, the Pulitzers and the Carnegies, they were all off the Rockefellers. They all were, making giant monuments to themselves. But these are things that are still here. Like we still go to Rockefeller Center, Carnegie Mellon Still University, the Pritzkers, even all these people that have all this money, they do good things. They did good things with the money that is still ricocheting out. And I don't think that, the rocket companies that Elon Musk and Richard Branson and Bezos are making, I don't think these things are like, like this monoliths that are going to like live on with them into the future, because I really think the only reason why they're doing I think it's really weird that all the billionaires are making rocket companies. I think they're all trying to get off this country, off this planet, and trying to find a way to get off this planet because they know how bad it is. They know that the climate is distressed, is falling apart. They know that the labor class is about to start revolting because, no one can afford anything. Like they know that shit is really bad here. And instead of being like, yes, climate change is real and let me be a hero by trying to solve it, they're just like, I'm going to try to colonize Mars. I'm going to try to put something on the moon. And it's like, why don't you focus here? It's super fucked up. And I don't think, and it's all connected. Like all of it is connected. And it's like, you think about, like how the way that rich people, like the truly rich, the 5 million and up class, I would imagine, because having $1 million isn't that much anymore, which is the sad thing. Like that is something that is really fucked up. When I was a kid, millionaires were like the coolest thing in the world. And now you have to be in the billions or the trillions in order to be considered actually rich, which is fucked up. But anyway, the way that wealth happens is that, like one of the things that I kind of you hear kind of bandied about is like taxing unrealized gains, which is a bunch of gobbledygook in my brain. But when I kind of, my husband's really good at explaining this stuff to me. I should have a podcast with him where he like explains things I don't understand, getting like mansplained by my husband, but it's like stuff that like we'd all like to know. Anyway, so like let's say you've got a million, like let's say you got $20 million in the bank in cash, like your company actually made some cash, and like Amazon doesn't really make any money. So let's say he's got a stock portfolio that's worth $300 million. It's all on paper. Like he bought the stock at $1,000 and now it's worth, $20 million or whatever. He's not paying any taxes on that money between that $1,000 and the $20 million that he just made off of, his Apple stock or his Google stock that he bought 30 years ago. And so he's got this money, this theoretical cash of what the value is of the stock portfolio. It's theoretical. He hasn't sold it, so he doesn't even know if he can get the price that it's claiming he can get. But he takes out a $500 million loan using that that money that has never been taxed, that has just grown year over year, theoretically, what it's worth. They can take out a loan for $500 million against the stock, saying that that's the asset that they're taking out that money against. And then he'll buy a rocket company that then the U.S. government pays as a contractor to take stuff to the space station or put satellites up into the air that we pay for. The U.S. taxpayers are paying the rocket company to do the things because no civilian is paying the rocket company to do anything. And we've probably been defunding NASA and like not letting them make money. And so instead of like having that money go into NASA and him getting taxed correctly, that money gets to go to NASA, and then we can do fun space things on a national scale and everybody can believe in it and like have the feelings we had towards the space program in the 60s. Now it just becomes a thing that we are paying a private company that bought the rocket company with money that they didn't have to pay taxes on. And then it's like, I mean, can you see how fucked up that is? Like that shouldn't be a possibility. Like, it's very fucked up. And then you think about how you get taxed on every dollar that you make. So, and this isn't, and I'm not talking about your like, everyone's got, where your 401ks, maybe you have a little money in the stock market, whatever you've got for retirement, that's like one thing. And it's something you have to have anymore because there's no way that most people can truly live a good life towards the end of their life on Social Security. You have to have some kind of outside retirement in order to be able to retire comfortably, which most Americans don't have. There's something like something like 28% or something of Americans have like enough money to retire on or something. I'm pulling that number out of my ass, but it's like wildly low. Anyway, you have to pay taxes on all your money, and Jeff Bezos pays no taxes on all of his money. Like I'm going to have to write a check in a couple of months or what? I don't know, next month because you pay corporate taxes in March. I'm going to have to pay tens of thousands of dollars in cash that I've been sitting aside, that has been just sitting there waiting for me to, and I'm going to have to write that check and for Toast and Jam. And having to pay taxes is a good problem. It's a high dollar problem. If you are paying taxes as a civilian, as a regular person, that you're supposed, that's good things. That means you made money. But when I know that I'm paying taxes, they're just going to pay for, fucking RFK's brainworms or whatever, like the murdering people in Gaza, taking child care workers prisoner in Minneapolis. Like, I don't want that to be where my tax dollars are going. But we don't really have a true say in what our tax dollars are even doing because we have gerrymandered this country to high hell so that, people just get, basically the Congress people are basically paying, they basically are choosing their electorate, and we'll never get out of this. Like the fact that like a couple weeks ago, in Texas, a very deeply red district flipped blue, and it freaked all the Republicans. Now Trump is trying to, remove the ability to have midterms. And my less informed people in my life are like, oh, this is all going to change at the midterms. And it's like, you think? Because I don't know. I don't really know if we're going to have midterms. And I'm not saying that from a like, well, if it doesn't happen, I guess it doesn't happen. I guess we're just it's like, I really think that right now they're doing everything they can to keep the midterms from happening. And so even if they do happen, he's sowing so much lack of faith in the voting machines or whatever. And one thing that I hope that everybody's aware of is that yesterday the SAFE Act went through, which is an act that all 50 Republicans voted for and like a Democrat voted for. That's a Texas Democrat voted for in the Senate, that makes it so that you can't vote unless you have your birth certificate. And if you changed your last name, you can't vote. Like, so basically it's a way to keep women that took their husband's last name from being able to vote. Like, it's your identification has to match your birth certificate, and then any woman that changed her name, or trans people that changed their name, or anybody that changed their name can't vote. And that just went through. Another thing they did is that they made it so that online or mail-in ballots have to be in by the election day. It used to be they had to be postmarked by the election day, but they have to be in by the election day. So if you mail in your ballot less than a week before election day, there's no guarantee that it's going to be in by election day. So all of those, anything that's received after election day isn't going to be valid. So that means that people who are in the military that live overseas, they won't be their votes unless they vote and send it in like a month earlier. They can't guarantee it's going to go through. So there's all these just little they're purging voter rolls. If you haven't voted in like the last like 3 elections, they're going to take you off the voter roll. There's all these shitty things, and all elections are run by states. If one of the things that Trump's trying to do is trying to nationalize the elections, so that the elections are being run by the federal government instead of state by state, to make it easier for him to be able to control it. And I know this sounds like a conspiracy theorist, but whatever. I mean, Elon Musk and Trump have both basically said out loud that he stole the election in 2020, or 2024, that he won by the slimmest of margins in a bunch of swing states. And I think that they just fucked with the machines enough to get enough votes so that he would technically win, even though he didn't even get 50% of the vote. I believe that. And I don't think there's any way that you can try to convince me otherwise. And I know it sounds like tinfoil hatty, but I mean, Elon Musk, go look. There's so much evidence that they are basically admitting, and every single accusation is a confession with them. So if they're saying, because I remember even when is it 2016? I guess it was 2020. Haha. When he's like, they're going to steal the election. I never really thought, I guess he was saying that in 2016 too. He was saying that if he didn't win, it was because the Democrats stole the election. And I don't feel we've ever really had that conversation about elections being rigged. That's never really been a big part. I mean, I think it could have been said. I guess we've heard it said, but it's not been on the level of like the presidential candidate saying, if I don't win, it's because the votes were rigged. And then if he does win, then could Hillary have then said that the votes were rigged? Like, she wouldn't, because that's not a normal thing that ever really happens. Every accusation is a confession. So yeah, I don't think we're going to have a fair election in November unless there is enough of Americans coming together to try to defeat it. I mean, I really think we're ripe for a revolution here. Like, I really feel like every woman I know acts as though bees and lightning are about to come out of their mouth at any time. I am all of a sudden deeply aware of how unfair the women in general, the things that I have had to deal with and other people haven't had to deal with. I get told to my face when I go to DJ conferences that I am a gimmick and that I am an outlier, that I am not normal. And it's like, why? Because I've got boobs and I'm successful? Is that, I don't know. There's only 4 women at these things, so I have to assume it's my vagina that is the problem. But it's like, in order for us to be able to have the revolution, in order for us to protest as a group, in order to have a general strike, we all have to come together. And this country is so fucking large that it's hard to even imagine that everyone in this country could come together, or at least the ones that are. And the reason why we can't is healthcare is tied to our jobs. And because healthcare is tied to our jobs, we can't lose our jobs. And if we go to protest, or if we go to do a general strike, we could lose our jobs. And so the union membership in this country has declined. If you look at a graph on income disparity and participation in unions, it's like the unions go down and the wealth goes up. I'm very pro union. In fact, if I had the energy and to do it. I would love to find a way to unionize the wedding industry, because it's like all my problems that I've had with my business are around that kind of like not having any kind of regulation within the event industry. I would love to unionize it. I would love it if all my DJs were in a union. I would love if because then there was like a standard of pay. You would know what, I don't know, whatever. That's a different conversation again, but I am very pro union. I would love to figure out a way to unionize. I wonder how hard that would be. Anyway, the lack of a union makes it so that people don't even have the kinds of things to be able to they don't have the money in their bank to be able to take some time off of work to have a general strike. They can't lose their job because they're going to lose health care. And, it's like we don't have any protections in this country. That's all by design. Like, I was watching an episode of the X-Files last night. We're watching the X-Files with Sebastian. God, that show's so good. It really, it's like set, the two main characters work for the FBI. And so a lot of stuff is like showing like how the federal government operates. And I'm just like, wow, it just does not. It's like, there is one episode, this guy, Eugene B. Tubes, it's kind of a classic episode where he is he's been in a mental asylum and he's about to get out. And all of the people are like, yeah, you're doing great. And like, he's in this like federal, mental health facility, and they're going forward of a board to see if like he's good enough to get out. And they're deciding that he is good enough to get out, but if he might have to come back to the asylum, and it's like all this stuff that's like paid for by taxpayers that like doesn't exist anymore. And it's like, I don't know, at the time those things did exist in the 80s or the 90s when that show was on, and we just have peeled all of these things that used to be around to help us. Even if, spoiler alert, he gets out, commits some murders. It's not cool. I think he steals livers. But we just don't live in a world anymore where this country can support it. And so in order for us to be able to have the revolution that we need to have, getting back on point, we need to be able to do that. And we can't do that if we can't afford to lose our jobs, or we can't afford to take a couple days off. And so that's where like, going to the community and making sure that people are, trying to have like, in Evanston, we've got Evanston Cares, which, collects food and money to be distributed to poor people. And we're using one of the ways we're using it is like kids that are on free or reduced lunch for school. We know how to target people that can, get access to these things. We've got love fridges around Evanston where you can either buy groceries or bring like leftovers that are labeled and dated, and people can just go and take the food, and it's like, no questions asked. I use that a lot. But anyway, my point is that we'll have to come down to the community level in order to be able to make these things happen. And that is just really hard, especially when, the only thing we're looking at is our phones. And, the algorithms are made to separate us and make us feel like we are just alone with our phones. And it's hard to build community when you're just looking at your phone. You need to get out in the world. You need to get off your phone. And everything on Meta is a nightmare. It's like you're just participating in your own demise and I'm as guilty as anyone else. I am on Instagram. I am on Facebook still, kind of. I go on Threads occasionally. Reddit, finally, to get something outside. But is Reddit owned by some nightmare? Who knows? I had to put an app on my phone that I pay $100 a year for that basically locks all my apps down. Instagram's only open on my phone from 5 p.m. until 10 p.m. But I still have ways that I can like override it. It's hard to override it, but I can still do it. So it's like an addiction. I can't get out of it. But we need to be looking more at the community. We need to start seeing how we can participate in the revolution in the ways that we can. I feel like I sound like a crazy person when I say this, but we need to figure out how to fix this. No one's coming for us. We have to do it ourselves. And I think that, one of the main ways to extract ourselves from this is getting rid of the corporate overlords. And the thing that I think has been, if I try to distill it all down, is convenience. Like, we have gotten addicted to convenience. And convenience comes with a price every single time. And prior to the pandemic, I would maybe order one or two things a year off of Amazon. I would only buy things that like I couldn't get at the store. Like, why would I have it ordered and sent to me? And like, it just felt so princessy to have someone like bring me things that I could buy at the store. I really didn't use it very much. But then once the pandemic happened and I couldn't find things, or you couldn't go places, I started using it like crazy. And And I knew that Bezos was evil. I knew that by having someone bring me a tube of toothpaste, it was the carbon footprint of that tube of toothpaste was crazy. But I just kind of get used to it, and everybody was doing it, and it's really easy to just and it was so far away from like who I was. Like when I was younger, when I was poor, like when I was, before I started Toast and Jam, when I was just like a poor college kid, and then after college, I was just like scrapping together. I just, I didn't make much money, but I had everything I needed. Like I never had to go without with my hour. I was making, I was waiting tables, and I never felt like I mean, sure, did I want a car? Okay. Yeah, I mean, there were things I didn't have. I rode a bike until I was 28 years old. I didn't have a car till I was 28. It wasn't like, oh, I'm too poor to have. It was like, I don't need a car. I've got a bike. And I borrowed my friends' cars if I really needed to do it. If I really needed a car. But you can't be poor anymore. You can't live an easy life. I don't think. I mean, I can say that I'm not in that position anymore. But it feels like you can't have a cheap life anymore. Like your phone bill is $100. All the things, the Amazon Prime, all you have to, in order to watch TV, you can't even just have a TV, turn it on and watch it. You have to have a streaming service, or you have to buy an antenna, and the antenna only gives you 4 channels. I mean, it's like this. Anyway, my point is you can't live a very cheap life anymore. And it's because we're all paying for the convenience. And that plus the fact that there's just a monopoly on so many. Like I managed last year to buy 2 things at Target, and then at Christmas time I had to cave because there was all this tradition that I wanted to keep being able to do for my son that involved like candy that I could only get at Target. Like I couldn't find it anywhere else. And it's like there's no mom and pop version of Target. Like there's certain things that I've been buying a lot of my stuff at Costco, which seems like the lesser of a lot of evils. But I couldn't buy those stupid like Storybook Lifesavers boxes that I always put in Sebastian's stocking. And when I went online to try to find, it was like I was either getting them at Walmart or I was getting them on Amazon, or it's like we have we've let mom and pop stores disappear, and we've made it so it's impossible to not have to use a company that you don't want to use in order to get things. And so then what it comes down to is the convenience, and then just going without. Those are the only other things that we can, because money is the only thing they care about. It's the only thing they care about. And the only way to make them listen is by withholding your dollars. I mean, the Jimmy Kimmel thing when he got canceled or whatever, taken off the air after he made that comment about, I can't even remember what the controversy was, because there's been so many fucking controversies. I cannot remember it, but it was bad as far as Trump was concerned. He gets taken off the air. We all canceled our Disney Plus memberships, and then 5 days later he's back on. And that was that should have been the biggest wake up call to everybody. Like, oh, okay, so if we all just canceled Netflix, and we like on one day, we all just canceled all of our subscriptions, like I think that would be a thing that would help us get what we need. But there's too many people whose algorithms are not serving them that information. And they also just cannot, they're so addicted to screens and online that they couldn't even they can't do it. They just can't. And that's the problem, is that we've all been led to think that we have to be able to watch the show that everybody's watching. As long as that show's Heated Rivalry, I'm obsessed with it. Like obsessed. Like I can't believe how obsessed I am with Heated Rivalry. That's a different conversation, but a different time. So horny. But it's unplugging. It is not shopping on Amazon anymore. It's not going to Target. It is not buying Apple products. It is not canceling any subscription. Like all subscriptions, just like, because subscriptions basically are saying you don't even own the thing you own, which is very fucked up. When you buy a printer and it turns off and you just you don't have a subscription to use the printer. Like, what the fuck is that? You don't even own the things that you own. I tried to use a DJ rig when I was in Panama, and they'd bought this DJ rig, and like I had to download, like the rig was like $300, and then you had to buy a monthly subscription software to make it work, which I don't have to do that on my like Serato Pro, but like it's weird that like you don't really own anything. You can't just use the things that you own. This is fucked up. And the convenience if there's a convenience attached to it, you need to get rid of it. And I am as guilty as, I'm not saying that I am perfect or I'm even close, but this is how we're going to have to do it, is by getting rid of the conveniences, shopping, only shopping with cash. Like, I think it is really fucked up when there's cashless places, because that means it will always cost money to spend your money. Someone is always making money off that transaction in addition to whatever it is you're buying. And I can say myself, the amount of money that we have to pay a year in merchant fees is insane. And so when I think about Visa getting 4% of every transaction that I process, and then if that transaction is not on a credit card that is getting paid off every month, and they're making, 10 to 30% on that transaction, like, why is that happening? Like why are we allowing that to happen? Why is that allowed? And it seems like there was moves being made by like Elizabeth Warren during the Bush administration to try to eliminate these kinds of things and make it so there's not just this naked capitalism. And it feels like everything is just naked capitalism. It's like everybody at this point is like, welp, everybody else is doing it, so I might as well raise my prices. I might as well charge a subscription fee. I might as well put a bunch of junk fees on top of this because everybody else is. And so it's, it's order for me to compete. And I was just talking about this yesterday with Melissa. Like at work, we on Wednesdays, we have our big, weekly meeting where we go over the numbers and, what we're charging. And, this is like, I don't even, we talked about this when we were on the air. I don't think we did, but, whenever I go to like DJ conferences, people are always talking about how much they're charging for things, and everyone's always talking a big game. And I'm like, well, God, these dipshits that live in, markets that are a fraction of the size of Chicago are charging twice what I am. Like, why are they able to do that? And I get kind of sucked into this like way of thinking where, it's all about how much money I'm charging, and can I look baller, and can I, be, like I'm technically one of the biggest companies in the country. So why shouldn't I be charging as much as everybody else is? And I get into this like weird rat racy thing around money, which money has never really been my North Star, and it seems like post-pandemic, it's like that's all anybody thinks or talks about. But my point is that like, I guess it was last year, we kind of raised our prices kind of astronomically. Like, I guess maybe it was 2 years ago, but I raised my prices kind of a lot, like by like $500, which was a lot, was more than I'd ever charged. And when we raised our prices to that, it became harder to sell our DJ services. So like, when it was, first of all, the number of people that wanted to have meetings with us dropped, which whatever, I'd rather have them drop out and, not waste my time having a meeting when they know they can't afford us, which is annoying, but whatever. Sometimes I think that there's less people having meetings with us. And then when we would have meetings with people, we would have to have like 2 or 3 calls in order to land the sale. So I was taking me like 3 to 4 hours just to get people to go to contract. And then there'd be a lot of emails. There was like way more hand-holding because we were like a much more expensive product. And then our complaints went up because I think that they were expecting the rehanging of the moon because we were charging so much more. And it was like, this isn't worth it. Like, it's not worth it to me to say that I'm charging, a lot of money for a service that, is worth it. I think it was worth the money. What we were able to do and provide is absolutely worth that money. But the luxury level and the amount of work we had to do just to get the job, and then when we got the job, them expecting, it was like our clients became lamer, and so then we wound up, we did that for like 3 months. And then I was like, I hate this. It's not fun. Like, I used to love doing sales calls, and I was like hating them because I had to keep having them for the same thing. And it's like, I don't know. It sucks. We lowered our prices. And then once we went back to what we were charging, it was like everything got fun again. And it's like, not everything. I mean, there's still hard things with it, but it got better. We were able to convert sales faster. People were happier. And it's like, but then the other thing is that, that year, I guess we must have done it longer for 3 months because we had mostly a year where we were at that rate. But like our average dollar sale obviously was higher. We did like like 25% less events. So it's interesting because we made more money on less events, which is like kind of the like that's what you want to do, is make more money off of doing less work. But to me, what's important as a business owner is being a job creator and giving people a place to work where they get to be in the music industry and be DJs and make good money. And so if I'm doing less weddings, that means I've got less DJs working and I've got less people that are able to make a living doing this job. And that was always the way I did things. That's how I was always able to do things. And it's harder to do that when you're trying to be a capitalist at the same time. And I don't think that I think there's a difference between commerce being a part of, the fabric of the world and capitalism. I am not pro-capitalism, but I am pro-commerce. I think that we all need to be part of the world and doing things that are good for us, and, wanting to be a part of society, and, being busy and having a purpose. Scrolling on your phone is not a purpose. And when we after in the 90s, when NAFTA went through and all the manufacturing companies went overseas, and now we went from being a country that made things to a country that consumes things. I don't know when we started referring to people in America as consumers, but it's the consumer index, and they refer to Americans as consumers. They don't refer to us as citizens, or, I don't know. It's really weird. Notice whenever you're watching the news, they refer to people that live in America as consumers, and it's gross and weird. When we went to the point where everybody had to start consuming things, everybody started getting desk jobs. You had to go to college in order to be able to get a job, even a job that doesn't require a degree. So it's forcing everybody to get college degrees, which they then have to overpay for, which they then have to get a job that can justify the amount of loans they have at the end. So I think there's a lot of people that are in desk jobs now that would be much happier as a gardener, or much happier as a construction worker. There seems to be no dignity left in manual labor. We don't think of those jobs as dignified, but they absolutely are. And they are skilled jobs that require, physical activity. And then we end up getting fatter as a country because we're not doing any jobs that actually move us around. It's all kind of just chunked together in this gross miasmic ball of nightmares that we are all kind of living within. And we're all this sucks. Everything feels sad and weird and gross. Women are being completely devalued. We don't have the same rights as men at this point. People of color are being snatched off the streets and put into warehouses. It's everything that we're happening right now is everything that happened during World War II. And everything that's happening during World War II happened during the slave times. And everything that's happening during the slave times was happening when we were colonial. And everything it's the best times and the worst of times. In many ways, the way we're living through right now is the best. It's in theory, the best time to be, to be a gay person, to be a woman, to be, there were so many strides that happened, and they're all just getting peeled away because all of the rich guys were like, wait, we're not making as much money off of these people. We need to have them feeling sick and sad and slow and unbehind. Let's defund education and make everybody kind of stupid so they don't understand how gerrymandering works. So they don't understand what a senator is versus a congressperson. They don't understand what a midterm election is and what does it mean versus the national election that happens every 4 years. I think about how lobbyists, lobbying, I think lobbying is probably the worst thing that's ever happened to this. Not what the word, there's a lot of terrible, it's a really bad thing. Lobbyists are very bad in my mind. I think lobbyists are good when you've got a tiny organization that needs to have representation. The wedding industry, for example, doesn't have a lobby in Congress. And I think that's part of the reason why it has been so fucked over the years in terms of being treated as a real job or whatever. But when you think about how whenever there is a big push in this country for paid time off or maternity leave, whenever the concept of parental leave comes up and it's a hot button issue and they're voting on it, you want to know what happens is that the lobby for the companies that make formula, which are pharmaceutical companies, make formula, BT dubs. Those lobbyists will go and lobby against those laws getting passed because the more people that have parental leave, the longer women breastfeed, and that reduces their profits on formula because they're banking on women who have to go back to work after 2 weeks, 3 months, 6 months if they're lucky. But that's very rare. But most women breastfeed for 3 months, maybe 6 months, if they can make it at all. And it's because the formula companies are keeping it from you being able to have that leave so they can still make money off of formula. Like, how fucked up and insidious is that? And we just let that happen. That just happens. Did you know that happens? I didn't know that happened until recently. I found out recently that formula companies lobby against paid parental leave because if it happens, they don't make as much money because too many women are feeding their babies with the free milk that's inside their bodies. And it actually isn't free because I would say when I was breastfeeding, that's all I thought about, and it's all I did. It was, am I pumping enough? Can I pump enough? Where can I pump? Like it was a lot. I mean, the amount of labor that went into making breastfeeding work it's a part-time job or a full-time job, depending upon how much your kid wants to feed. But my point is that like, we're getting fucked at every turn, it doesn't help. So I don't really know where the point of this screed was today. I don't really know. I'm just freaking out. And it's like, I feel like I'm depressed and I feel like I'm sad all the time. And I am legit a Debbie Downer. Like I feel like anytime I hang out with anybody, like, how you doing? I'm like, fine, despite the fascism. Womp womp. I was actually listening to Amy Poehler had Rachel Dratch on her podcast I'm really behind. I just listened to it, but I think it was from last fall. And she was talking about the way that Debbie Downer happened was she was on vacation in Costa Rica and it was like 2004. And she mentioned that she was an actor in New York City and they're like, were you living there during 9/11? And she's like, yeah, but like, we're on vacation. Why are we talking about this? And I'm like, I'm that guy. I am the guy that's like, were you living in New York during 9/11 when you're trying to like just talk about your fun time in New York City when you were in the early 2000s? Like that's me. And I feel like if I'm not bringing up the problems, then I'm like complicit in them. And I also feel like there's a lot of people who aren't being educated on what's actually happened. The algorithm's not serving them anything. All they're seeing is, heated rivalry and Olympics footage. They're not seeing anything about, what's happening in Minnesota. And I feel like I have to say something. And then I'm like, well, I'm Debbie Downer. Okay, so clearly I'm the person that's bringing everybody down, but I don't know how to not be Debbie Downer. And then I'm like, am I depressed or am I just not fit to handle fascism, or at least fascism in this form? And had the fascisms, then I start thinking about it. And obviously I'm thinking the fascism's already been there. Like, think about, Monticello, like Mount Vernon, those places were Epstein Islands. If you really think about it, they were buildings where people were raped and awful things happened. And it's always been this way. And it needs to change. And I can't live through like this anymore. And the future freaks me the fuck out. I live in the future in many ways. Like, in the wedding industry, you're always thinking about the year ahead. I'm always aware of what's happening in my life for a year, whether I'm DJing weddings or not. Like it's just my brain is programmed to think ahead and plan and try to, combat, bad scenes where I can. And I don't know if I'm depressed or if I just can't handle the fascism. And I'm anxious all the time. And are you? Are you anxious all the time? Are you freaked out? I don't have the answer. But when I start thinking about all the ways it's so fucked up, my brain starts kind of collapsing in on itself. And it's like I'm paralyzed. And so, it's like the fact that this podcast can even come out at this time is literally by the grace of Shiraz, my producer. He's really helping me get my stuff out there because I can't, I'm so stymied. I need help, but then I also don't know how to ask for help. I don't know how to make, it's like, I don't know. Anyway, I don't know how to wrap this up. I don't know how to end this, but I don't know. It might be kind of cool if you commented on, the post about this on the Instagram feed that keeps it in meta. I don't like that. Send me a voicemail. There's a voicemail option where you can send a voicemail. There's also, you can send me a message through the website, openmyladybusiness.com. I don't know. I'm feeling trapped and I'm feeling scared and sad and helpless and hopeless. And I don't know how to get out of it. So that's sort of where we're at with that. I think that maybe that's what it is. Maybe you guys just need to join the conversation. Maybe I just need to be in community more with the people who are listening, the dozens of people that listen to my show. Like maybe we need to all start talking and find a way to do that. And if you have any ideas, I'd love it. I'll do, maybe we do Zooms, maybe we meet in person, maybe we just talk in a comment section, but I'm so alone, it feels like, but I'm not, like I know that there's a lot of me out there, and we got to figure a way through this, because we can't just wait for the midterms and be like, okay, the Democrats are the Democrats are going to be doing apparently nothing, because we've known what's been in the Epstein files for years. During, I guess, the first Trump administration was when the X-Files, when the Epstein files came out. So I don't know. Help me get out of this. Help me. I don't know. Sound off in the comments. Smash that subscribe button. Give me some likes. Okay, bye. Thanks for listening to All Up in My Lady Business with me, Mary Nisi. We'd love for you to like, review, subscribe, follow us at All Up in My Lady Business on the gram. And if you're a female identifying person and you want to dance, you can follow. Everybody can follow it. But if you want to be a part of the magic at Hot Flash Dance Party, sign up for the mailing list to find out where our next party is going to be. And if you are looking for a DJ in the Chicagoland area or anywhere else, money's the same color everywhere. Fly us out. ToastandJamDJs.com has the best. And listen to my radio show. I have a radio show on Chirp Radio at chirpradio.org. And that's Mondays, every Monday from 12 until 3 p.m. CST. Today's episode is produced by Shiraz Dada. Theme song composed and performed by, you guessed it, Shiraz Dada. All right, guys. Peace out.